Kash Patel held the fate of a 7-year political narrative under his fingertips, preparing to confront Senator Adam Schiff with a single, red-bordered document that refused to burn. A starkly marked folder, rimmed in red to signify its declassified status, was opened by Kash Patel, who deliberately set a solitary sheet of paper on the desk before him. Along its upper and lower margins ran security classifications, the specific identifiers rarely witnessed by the general public. These were the stamps signifying that the paper belonged in secure vaults, accessible only to individuals possessing top-tier clearances, and was absolutely forbidden from resting on a public Senate hearing room table, under the glare of 14 broadcast cameras and an audience of 1.9 million viewers on C-SPAN. Just half a year prior, this exact document had been discarded in an FBI headquarters burn bag, slated for total incineration. An unknown individual had tossed it there, intending to erase it from history. Yet, it survived. Directly across the wood-paneled space, Adam Schiff extended his right hand toward a glass of water, only to freeze mid-motion. His fingertips lingered a mere inch above the glass edge, caught in a momentary hesitation between taking a drink and withdrawing entirely, before finally dropping back down to rest on the desk. Beside him, an aide shifted forward. The presiding committee chairman directed his gaze toward the revealed paper. For 7 long years, Patel had anticipated this exact confrontation. The proceedings had only just commenced. Ostensibly, this gathering was convened to discuss structural reforms within the FBI. Senator Adam Schiff, representing California and acting in his role on the Senate Judiciary Committee, had meticulously drafted a 12-minute interrogation focused on financial distributions, the reorganization of regional branches, and the agency's networking with the broader intelligence sphere. These were the standard, expected inquiries a lawmaker poses to an agency head during oversight duties, the type of probing that yields bureaucratic replies, bureaucratic counter-questions, and ultimately, a bureaucratic void of substance. Schiff projected his initial inquiry with the polished command of an official harboring a 24-year congressional tenure. Fully aware of the dynamic the interrogator dictates the atmosphere, the responder yields to it, and the gap between them symbolizes the gulf between absolute authority and forced transparency. Director Patel, could you detail for this panel the specific measures the agency has implemented to regain the trust of the American people in the wake of the acknowledged failures of the Russia investigation? It was a masterfully framed question, tactical, immune to objections, and engineered to cast Schiff as the rational supervisor while painting Patel as the broken system requiring supervision. The inquiry established a strict order: lawmaker above, agency head below, inquisitor reigning, testifier submitting. Patel wholly rejected that established order. I appreciate the inquiry, Senator. Credibility is indeed a crucial topic. Before I detail our internal reforms, I intend to submit specific records into the official transcript. They speak directly to how that public trust was compromised in the first place. Schiff's jaw, elevated by a fraction of an inch, a subtle recalibration. It was the microscopic reflex of an individual who has just processed a statement, veering wildly off its anticipated course, and is frantically charting a new path. Director Patel, I would much rather you stick to the question regarding the 22nd of March 2017. Patel recited the timestamp with the cadence of a legal clerk announcing a docket number, monotone, exact, stripped of sentiment, devoid of background, and lacking any assumption that the audience would find it captivating. The timestamp itself was mundane. The words that succeeded it were not. Appearing on NBC News's Meet the Press, the individual who was then Congressman Adam Schiff declared, and I quote verbatim, "There is more than circumstantial evidence now suggesting collusion between Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign and Russia." He flipped to the subsequent sheet. The 2nd of April 2017. During CNN's State of the Union broadcast, Congressman Schiff proclaimed, "I can tell you there is evidence that is not circumstantial and is very much worthy of investigation." Another page was turned, the 23rd of July, 2017. On Meet the Press once more, Congressman Schiff voiced alarm that, quote, President Trump's actions might be influenced by personal interests and potential Russian leverage. He never broke his gaze from the documents between recitations. His vision tracked across the text with the intense, side-to-side accuracy of an expert who had dedicated his professional life to scanning evidentiary inventories as a DOJ prosecutor, tracing illicit terror funds as a public defender, and auditing discovery materials as a congressional investigator identifying surveillance abuse. He consumed written information the way ordinary citizens inhale oxygen instinctively, comprehensively, and completely devoid of any urge to dramatize the process for onlookers. October 2017, speaking to MSNBC's Rachel Maddow, Congressman Schiff stated, "I can't go into the particulars, but I believe the evidence of collusion is damning." Next page. March 2018, to CNN's Anderson Cooper. Congressman Schiff insisted, "We have ample evidence of collusion in plain sight." Next page. February 2019. On CBS's Face the Nation, Congressman Schiff affirmed, "Undoubtedly, there is collusion." Patel laid the stack of papers down. 7 distinct pages now rested in chronological sequence upon the wood, each representing a printed television broadcast transcript featuring the specific date, the broadcasting network, and the illuminated quotation. It mirrored the sort of evidentiary display a trial lawyer constructs when the accused's own recorded declarations serve as the primary proof. Across a span of 3 years, the then congressman iterated this assertion, or a substantive variant of it, on nationwide broadcasts no less than 21 times, 21 separate appearances on networks with millions of viewers, leveraging the prestige of his title as the ranking member and later chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, a committee granted access to the most highly classified information held by the United States government. He flipped the red-bordered folder to a separate tab, Item Special Counsel. Robert Mueller's report, delivered the 18th of April 2019, concluding that the investigation failed to establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. He bypassed the next tab. Item Special Counsel John Durham's report, delivered the 15th of May 2023, finding that the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation was opened based on, quote, raw, unanalyzed, and uncorroborated intelligence. Durham concluded that the FBI neglected to maintain their mission of strict fidelity to the law. He closed the tab. Resting both palms completely flat against the folder, his posture was balanced and exact. They were the hands of an operative, conditioned to conceal his internal feelings, and he was revealing absolutely nothing. Senator Schiff assured the American people 21 separate times that he had seen evidence of collusion. 2 special counsels spent a combined 8 years investigating. Neither found evidence of collusion. The evidence the senator claimed to possess has never been produced, never been identified, and never been described within any classified or unclassified forum. He locked eyes with Schiff. The stare was devoid of hostility. It lacked theatricality. It was the precise glare a litigator directs at a witness during a rigorous cross-examination, unwavering, anchored, and burdened with the distinct gravity of an individual who already possesses the factual answer to the inquiry he is preparing to vocalize. Senator, I have served as a federal prosecutor. I have served as a public defender. I have litigated cases in federal court under both roles. When an individual claims to possess evidence 21 times and produces none, there is a word for that in the legal system: He abstained from uttering the term. The room filled it in. 1.9 million people filled it in. That unspoken term resonated as the loudest sound in the entire space, despite no one speaking it. Schiff shifted closer to his microphone. His vocalization carried the clipped, procedural tone of a professional grasping for his standard occupational tools, parliamentary procedure, the rules of the hearing room, the structural scaffold that imposes order upon chaos, and, when deployed properly, offers shelter to the person who needs it most. Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel is using this oversight hearing to relitigate matters that have been thoroughly addressed by multiple investigations and that are not within the scope of the committee. The chair, a Republican from Iowa sporting reading glasses and projecting the unhurried demeanor of a man who had chaired 14 hearings this session and intends to chair 14 more, peered at Schiff above the rims of his lenses. The witness is addressing the question of bureau credibility, which the senator himself raised. The witness may proceed. Schiff's procedural shield, the first one designed to redirect the hearing back to safe ground, shattered against the gavel, like a wave crashing into a seawall. The seawall held. The wave did not. Patel opened the folder to the next document. I have one more item for this section. This document was declassified in March 2026. It is an internal memorandum from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, dated March 8, 201714, 4 days prior to the senator's first public claim of more than circumstantial evidence. He recited the text from the page, and his vocal tone, which had remained flat and procedural over the previous 10 minutes, did not alter, did not decelerate, did not inject any emphasis. He just read. Because the words on the page required no emphasis, they merely required air. The memorandum summarizes a closed-session FBI briefing provided to committee members, including the ranking member. The summary notes that FBI representatives described the evidentiary basis for the Russia investigation as, quote, preliminary and unsubstantiated. The ranking member was present for this briefing. His attendance is confirmed by the committee's sign-in log. Patel deposited the document onto the table. It joined the 7 transcripts and the 2 special counsel findings. 10 pages were now laid out in a continuous line, spanning left to right across the table, resembling a sentence that wrote itself. 14 days before the senator told the American people he had seen more than circumstantial evidence. He sat in a classified briefing and was told by the FBI that the evidence was preliminary and unsubstantiated. The room absorbed this revelation in the same manner a body processes a blow to the chest. Not immediately, not through a single reaction, but via a spreading wave of compression that initiated in the front rows, migrated backward through the gallery, washed over the press section and the cameras, and ultimately struck the 1.9 million people on the other side of the broadcast, all of whom were arriving at the same conclusion at the same speed. He knew. He was told it was unsubstantiated, and he went on television anyway. Schiff's hands rested flat on the table, both of them. It was the posture of a man who is physically holding himself in place. Patel offered no verbal transition. He advanced to the succeeding section of the folder, in the manner a surgeon turns from one instrument to the next, without conversation, without acknowledgement, operating with the focused continuity of a man who is in the middle of a procedure and perceives absolutely no reason to narrate it. I want to show how the narrative was constructed, not just repeated constructed, built, engineered, because what happened between 2016 and 2019 was not a series of mistakes. It was an architecture. He produced a fresh document, a flowchart printed on a single page, the specific type of visual that prosecutors use in RICO cases to show juries how money or instructions or influence moves through a system. 2016. The Democratic National Committee and the Clinton presidential campaign retained the research firm Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS retains Christopher Steele, a former British intelligence officer. Steele produces a dossier, 35 pages of allegations against Donald Trump and his associates, alleging coordination with the Russian government. He traced the flowchart with his finger, a rare physical gesture from a man who had barely moved since the hearing began. The dossier goes to the FBI. The FBI uses the dossier as a central component of applications to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the FISA court, to obtain warrants authorizing electronic surveillance of Carter Page, an advisor to the Trump campaign. He flipped to the next document. Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz reviewed the FISA applications in 2019. He identified 17 significant errors and omissions. 17. Not one, not three. 17. Including the failure to disclose that the dossier was funded by a political campaign and the failure to disclose that a key subsource for the dossier had told the FBI that the information was, quote, rumor and speculation. He rested the IG report summary upon the table. The FBI knew the dossier was unverified. They knew the primary subsource called it rumor. They used it to obtain warrants to surveil an American citizen. And the senator, the ranking member of the committee charged with overseeing this process, read the dossier into the congressional record of the United States, not as allegation, as fact. He directed his gaze toward Schiff. You read a fabricated document, funded by one political campaign, written by a foreign national, sourced from contacts who told the FBI the information was rumor, into the official record of the United States Congress, and you presented it as truth. Schiff's mouth opened. His aide's hand pressed against his arm, applying a light touch. The specific kind of touch that means don't in the silent language of legal counsel. Point of order, Senator. I haven't finished. Patel's vocal pitch did not rise, did not harden. He merely stated the fact that he had not finished, in the exact manner a man states any fact that is obvious and does not require emphasis. The committee chair did not intervene. Schiff's point of order hung in the air, unanswered, uncompleted, a procedural motion with no procedure to attach to. Akin to a key inserted into the wrong lock, Patel pressed forward. When I became FBI director in 2025, my team conducted a comprehensive audit of physical and digital records related to the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. During that audit, we discovered thousands of documents in burn bags at FBI headquarters. He paused, not for dramatic effect, but because the next sentence required a pause, much like a bridge requires pylons. Burn bags are containers used for the destruction of classified material. Documents placed in burn bags are scheduled for incineration. These documents had been placed in burn bags, but had not been destroyed. They were found in a secure room at Bureau headquarters that was not listed in the facility's official inventory. He withdrew an additional document from the folder. Red, bordered, declassified. The classification markings visible from the third row. Among the recovered documents, internal FBI legal reviews noting that the source reliability assessment for the Steele dossier was, quote, not completed prior to FISA submission. The FBI's own lawyers flagged the problem. The applications were submitted anyway. He deposited it onto the table, and a notation, handwritten in the margin of the legal review, that reads, HPSCI, ranking member briefed on source limitations. He leveled his eyes at Schiff. You were briefed on the source limitations before you read the dossier into the congressional record, before you went on television 21 times, before you told the American people you had evidence. You were told in a classified setting by the FBI that the source material was unreliable. The room was enveloped in the specific silence of a place where the ventilation system has become audible, not because it got louder, but because everything else stopped. Patel's hands remained on the folder. They had maintained that exact placement since the hearing began. Same position, same symmetry, same controlled stillness. But now, for the first time, The knuckles showed white along the edges. Not dramatically. Not visibly to the cameras. Visible strictly to the first row. Visible to anyone watching his hands instead of his face. I want to add something personal. The term personal immediately altered the room's air pressure, as the word personal always does, when spoken by a man who has not said anything personal for 20 minutes. During my investigation of these matters, while I was serving as chief investigator on the House Intelligence Committee doing the job I was hired to do, the FBI conducted surveillance on me. They ran information operations against me. They attempted to discredit the investigation I was conducting by discrediting the investigator. His voice did not change. His posture did not shift. The only movement was in his hands, a tightening of the fingers on the folder's edge, amounting to perhaps 1 millimeter of additional pressure, visible only to the people close enough to see the tendons in the back of his hands adjust. I kept investigating. I found what they hid. And I am now sitting in this chair as the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the same bureau that surveilled me. He locked his gaze onto Schiff. And you are sitting in that chair as the United States Senator from California, the same man who told the American people I was chasing a conspiracy theory. A prolonged pause. One of us was right. The sentence lingered in the room like a closed door. Positioned on one side, a man who said there was evidence and produced none. Positioned on the other, a man who said there was a hoax and proved it. 7 entire years spanning the claim and the proof, and now they were sitting 6 feet apart in a Senate hearing room. And the proof was on the table in a red-bordered folder, and the claim was in 21 television transcripts arranged in chronological order. And the distance between the folder and the transcripts was the vast chasm between what happened and what was said. And the two had never been in the same room before. They were in the same room now. Patel closed the classified folder. The sound it made, the soft, the precise snap of a folder closing, when the person closing it intends it to stay closed, echoed through the room, the way a period carries at the end of a long sentence. He rested both hands firmly on top of it. I want to end with a timeline, not of intelligence, of consequences, or rather, of the absence of consequences. He refrained from opening a new document. He required none. The timeline he prepared to read belonged to the public record, accessible to anyone with a search engine and a memory. And the reality that it was public made it worse, not better, because the public had watched it happen in real time and had done nothing, because there was nothing to do, because the system that was supposed to prevent this was the exact system that had produced it. 2017 through 2019, Senator Schiff, then Congressman Schiff, appears on national television at least 21 times, claiming to possess evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. The evidence is never produced. April 2019, Special Counsel Mueller's report finds no evidence of collusion. May 2023 Special Counsel Durham's report finds the entire investigation was based on uncorroborated intelligence. The 21st of June, 2023, the United States House of Representatives votes to censure Adam Schiff. The resolution states that he engaged in misleading the American public and spread falsehoods, misrepresentations, and abuses of sensitive information. He paused. The senator's response to the censure. He stood in the well of the House of Representatives where the censure was being read. He smiled. He turned to the cameras and smiled. He let that image marinate. A man being formally censured by his colleagues for misleading the country, standing in the chamber where the censure was delivered, and smiling into the cameras. He then raised $8.1 million in campaign donations directly tied to the censure. $8.1 million. The censure, the formal punishment for misleading the American people, became a fundraising event. In 2024, the senator won election to the United States Senate from the state of California. He set his hands on the folder one final time. The senator claimed evidence 21 times. 2 special counsels found none. The House censured him. He raised $8.1 million from the censure. Then, he was promoted to the Senate. He directed his focus toward the camera. He bypassed Schiff. He bypassed the committee, staring straight at the 1.9 million people watching from the other side of the broadcast. I spent 7 years investigating the truth. I was surveilled. I was smeared. I was called a conspiracy theorist by the man sitting across from me. The truth turned out to be what I said it was. The conspiracy turned out to be what he said it wasn't. As a senator, I'm the director of the FBI. I'll let the American people decide which of those outcomes is the scandal. He aligned the folder's edges, squaring them parallel with the table's edge. It was the small, deliberate gesture of a man who keeps evidence the exact way. He keeps arguments organized, filed, ready. I have nothing further. Adam Schiff did not leave the hearing room, primarily because Adam Schiff was a senator, and senators do not flee their own hearings. He maintained his position in his chair for the remaining 47 minutes of testimony, questions from other senators, answers from Patel, the routine procedural business of a committee doing its work. And he did not ask another question. His microphone stayed off. His aide's pen glided continuously across a legal pad, saturating the pages with notes that no one in the gallery could read, and that, judging by the rapid speed of the writing, were not questions for the witness, but instructions for the communications team waiting in the hallway. The classified folder maintained its position on the table in front of Patel, sealed tight, red borders visible to every camera in the room. It sat there for 47 continuous minutes, like an exhibit that had not been dismissed because it had not been dismissed, because Patel had not dismissed it, because a prosecutor refuses to dismiss his exhibits while the case is still open. In less than 24 hours, the clip of one of us was right. Accumulated 6 million views, transforming into the most shared political video in the country. It clocked in at exactly 11 seconds long. It encompassed no policy, no legislation, no budget numbers. It merely encompassed one man looking at another man and stating the conclusion that 7 years of investigation had produced, utilizing a voice that did not rise and did not need to. Schiff's office circulated a statement describing the hearing as partisan theater executed by a political appointee exploiting his position to settle personal scores. The statement wholly ignored the 1 4-day gap between the classified briefing and the first television appearance. It wholly ignored the burn bag. It wholly ignored the 21 television transcripts arranged in chronological order on a table in a Senate hearing room. It ignored absolutely all of the evidence, simply because addressing evidence requires counter-evidence, and there was no counter-evidence. There was only the word theater repeated across 3 paragraphs, operating under the illusion that calling something theater makes it less real. Point of order materialized across compilation videos within hours, the dual instances from the hearing spliced back to back, each sequence immediately followed by the committee chair's denial and Patel's continuation. This repetitive splicing visually manifested what had already been audible in the room. Schiff's procedural motions were never legitimate parliamentary tools. They were involuntary flinches, the legal equivalent of raising your hands in front of your face. Before a single week had elapsed, the Senate Ethics Committee was served with a formal complaint detailing the mishandling of classified information by a current member. The complaint explicitly cited the declassified HPSCI memorandum, the specific document proving Schiff had been briefed on source limitations before issuing public statements, and demanded a review of whether the senator's television appearances constituted the misrepresentation of classified material for political purposes. 3 distinct legal analysts, featuring on separate networks, autonomously confirmed that the burn bag documents raised what one analyst called serious and unresolved questions about the accuracy of prior congressional testimony. $8.1 million instantly transformed into shorthand overnight. It no longer represented a dollar amount, it represented an entire system. The system wherein a man lies, is caught, is punished, monetizes the punishment, and is promoted. The figure held no relation to money. It illustrated the exact distance between consequence and reward. A month later, Patel hosted a press conference located at FBI headquarters. A reporter probed him regarding Schiff. Patel remained stationed behind the podium, arms resting at his sides, his face projecting the exact identical composure it had projected for the duration of the hearing, controlled, precise. The face of a man who dedicated his life's work to operating inside rooms where displaying emotion equates to a strategic tactical error. "The documents will speak for themselves," he stated. He offered no additional commentary, primarily because he operated as a prosecutor, and prosecutors allow the evidence to talk. Inside a compact studio apartment located in Northern Virginia, a man identified as Carter Page rested in a chair near the window, the television illuminated, the volume muted. The screen displayed a replay of the hearing. Patel reading dates, Schiff reaching for water, the red-bordered folder resting on the table. Carter Page formerly served as a naval officer, transitioned into a business consultant, and eventually operated as an energy advisor who attended a handful of meetings, delivered a few speeches, and worked briefly and peripherally on a presidential campaign. A campaign he believed in the exact manner the majority of campaign volunteers believe in their candidates, sincerely, incompletely, and harboring zero expectation that the work would permanently change his life. It changed his life. During October 2016, the FBI secured a warrant courtesy of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to monitor his communications. The warrant heavily relied upon the Steele Dossier, the identical document that Christopher Steele assembled, utilizing sources who eventually admitted to the FBI that their information was rumor and speculation. The identical document that Adam Schiff verbally injected into the congressional record as absolute fact. The warrant transformed Carter Page from a person into a mere name. A name plastered across headlines, crawling across chyrons, echoing within breathless cable news segments that paired phrases like Russian agent and Kremlin contact and surveillance target within sentences that simultaneously featured his name, and the physical proximity of those accusatory words to his name achieved what proximity inevitably achieves it, forged an inseparable association that no retraction, no correction, and no special counsel's report could ever fully undo. His consulting clients vanished. His professional relationships disintegrated. He lost the specific version of his life that existed prior to October 2016, the version where Carter Page functioned as a person and not a name, the version where he commuted to work, returned home, and never had to wonder whether the people he interacted with had Googled him first. 7 years. He watched the screen, watched Patel open the folder, watched the page that had inhabited a burn bag, the page that an unknown individual had attempted to destroy, get positioned upon the table inside a Senate hearing room, watched Patel read the specific words, source reliability assessment, not completed, coupled with HPSCI ranking member briefed on source limitations, briefed. That single word landed in Carter Page's apartment the exact way it had landed in the hearing room, carrying the immense weight of a fact capable of rearranging every other fact surrounding it. Schiff underwent a briefing, absorbed the reality that the source was unreliable, and proceeded to broadcast himself on television anyway 21 times, while Carter Page's name saturated the headlines, while Carter Page's life was being systematically disassembled by an investigation constructed upon a document that the man promoting it explicitly knew remained unverified. Page deactivated the television. The screen faded to black. His reflection materialized within the dark glass. Older now, thinner, possessing the face of a man who squandered 7 years, operating as a mere name instead of a person, entirely uncertain if the transition back is a possible reality. 7 years, he uttered to the blackened screen, to the empty apartment. Outside, Virginia lay quiet. The streetlights were illuminated, the road extending toward Washington, stretching toward the hearing rooms, the cameras, the classified folders, and the burn bags sat a mere 12 miles south. And 12 miles hardly qualified as very far. Yet simultaneously, 12 miles represented the farthest distance in the entire world. The folder rested on the table now. Red borders, declassified. The documents destined for destruction now occupied the public record. The man who had championed the lie currently sat in the room where the lie was being recited directly back at him. The man who had excavated the truth currently sat directly across from him, alongside the truth, arranged chronologically atop the table, bridging the gap between them. It did not qualify as justice. Carter Page possessed a clear understanding of what justice truly looked like. Justice represented the outcome designed to occur once the truth surfaced. Yet the truth had surfaced multiple years prior, and justice had completely failed to come, leaving him unsure if it ever truly would. But the folder currently rested on the table, and the man responsible for placing it there had endured a 7-year wait. That amounted to something. It failed to be enough, but it was.